Hello everyone, welcome to my spoiler talk for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, a for some reason very polarizing movie, which I don't really get, because no matter how you look at it, this is not a bad movie, but it's not perfect either. So we start this movie off with Peter's parents basically falling in love, and then also we have Ego planting a weird plant into the ground, which will come into play later, but a weird plant into the ground, which it looks very weird. And then we go 34 years later, where we have the Guardians of the Galaxy fighting a monster for the Sovereign, and Baby Groot is dancing to some music, and the gang is arguing amongst each other as they always do. And we learn that Drax the Destroyer has very sensitive nipples, which will also come into play later. Anyway, let's hit the music and let's fight the monster while we see Baby Groot dance, which I thought was a weird thing, but it's a little bit, it's that whole cutesy marketing moment where every studio executive is like, oh hey look, money. People are gonna see that opening and they will want to buy a Baby Groot plushie or a toy from Baby Groot. Now, I will be honest here, I don't, but I'm also not a woman, which I feel like that, or a child, which that is kind of the targeting audience, but I do have the brain of a child. But they are basically fighting while Groot is dancing, and then eventually Drax lands on the sound system, I guess, and Baby Groot gets mad, and then we get into the real fight. So they have an issue, because the beast's skin is too hard to penetrate. So Drax has a brilliant idea. He'll jump into the mouth and cut it open from the inside, which it's the same strength on the inside as the outside, so that's something dumb. So Gamora also uses guns, which was also one of the arguing moments, because the fact that Peter Quill's the one that uses guns and she has swords. I guess now we're both using guns. But Peter notices an opening and tells Gamora to attack the opening. So she wants to shoot, but she has a blockage, throws away, grabs a sword, and then just slices through that monster. And then Drax comes out. I have single-handedly slain the beast. And what we learn later on is the fact that the Guardians were hired in order to protect batteries, which are apparently very valuable. And they were doing this in order to get Nebula, so they could give her over to the Nova Corps. And there you go. That's basically Nebula's done. However, Rocket steals a couple of batteries, so we have a small issue, and that's the fact that they found out. So now they're coming after the Guardians. Also before that, we have a small scene where basically Drax is like, look, you need to, some people are dancers and some people aren't. My wife, like, the most beautiful song could be playing and she wouldn't even tap her foot. And he also says that Peter Quill needs to find someone who is as pathetic as he is. And also we have an ongoing joke about the fact that the fruit is not ripe yet. Anyway, back to the Sovereign. They learned somehow that the batteries were stolen, so they fly after the Guardians and attack them. And, you know, we all think that those ships are manned, but they're not. They are unmanned ships, which makes me go, wait, but why did they hire the Guardians then? If those ships are unmanned, they could have just used those ships to fight that big monster. You didn't need to hire the Guardians of the Galaxy. Like, what? Okay. That is number one of the inconsistency that I have, where it was like, yeah, but you could have just done that. Anyway, they go into the asteroid field in order to be able to lose everyone, and one guy stays on their tail until he also gets blown up, and then the rest of the ships apparently went around the asteroid field until they all get destroyed by a tiny 1-inch man on top of a ship. Meanwhile, the Guardians crash on a planet. Also, before that, Drax jumps out of the thing in order to shoot the last ship that was following them before they got out of the asteroid field. And he's still hanging out there. So when they go to this forest planet, Gamora grabs the thing that Drax is attached to, and he just starts getting smacked around between trees. And they crash because of the fact that Rocket and Quill were arguing about who's the better pilot. So if either of them had flown the ship, they would have been saved. But they didn't. They fought over each other, and now the ship is completely destroyed, basically. So they have a bit more of an arguing moment, as you always do. And then Ego arrives. Basically, he's like, yo, Peter, I'm your papa. Come with me if you want a papa. Meanwhile, on the other side of the galaxy, or somewhere, I don't know. I don't have a map. I don't know where it is. But we have Yondu, who has basically just had the bouncy with a bot, with a bouncy bot, to say that, to be ad friendly, I guess, even though I don't get ads, so child friendly, I guess. And he then gets cut off from the Ravengers because Yondu was smuggling kids, which is a setup for later on. And also, Yondu will never have a Ravenger funeral, which is like, dude, so he's gonna die, ain't he? Yep, he's most certainly going to die. And then we have the Gold Lady, which is what I call her because I don't remember her name, but I didn't really care about her name. She arrives, which once again we have a comedic moment. This comedic moment did not land, where the thing gets stuck. That didn't really get land. Anyway, but basically she hires the Guardians of the Ravengers in order to hunt down the Guardians of the Galaxy. Meanwhile, back with the Guardians of the Galaxy, we have the fact that they are just talking, and Drax thinks that Yondu was Peter's father. And then it's like, you look almost exactly alike. One's blue, is what Rocket says at that point, which I thought was a funny one. That was funny. I told you Drax is a funny character. Like, instead of him being literal in this movie, it feels like he's just stupid. He's just stupid, and he also very much reminds me of myself, because he just says what's on his mind. However, I always try to do it for comedic purposes. He's just an idiot. You big dummy. And then also, Peter and Gamora walk off. Meanwhile, you have the Mantis, who is like, can I pet your pet, I guess? And he's like, yeah, sure. And then Rocket almost bites Mantis' finger off. Then Drax like, that's a practical joke. I like the two of them together. Meanwhile, Gamora's trying to convince Peter Quill about the fact that, you know, he should go with Ego because he's always wanted a dad. And also, back in this day, apparently Peter Quill used to tell kids that his father was David Hasselhoff. Now, when I saw this movie in theaters, I was like, oh my god, I know who that is. My boy, Michael Knight. And then they referenced Knight Rider, and I'm like, oh my god, I love this movie. No matter what, this movie can be bad. It referenced Knight Rider. But basically, Gamora is like, what if this is your David Hasselhoff, okay? So, they agree to go. However, Rocket and Groot stay behind on the ship, and also to keep an eye on Nebula, while also Rocket fixes the ship. We have Peter Quill, Gamora, and Drax. They leave with Ego to go to his planet. So on the way over there, we learn a bit more about Mantis. I called her in my review a walking, talking sleeping pill, which that's basically what she is, because her powers are basically she can feel other people's emotions. You have a very strong love, no, a romantic and sexual love for her. And then also she starts to laugh when she touches Drax. However, she can also alter emotions. As in, she can make, you know, Gamora later on in the movie scared. She can make Ego sleepy. And I found that pretty cool that she had the power to feel, but also alter emotions. It's an interesting thing. Meanwhile, while they are going to Ego's planet on with Rocket, we have the fact that the Ravagers attack the ship. However, Rocket is pretty smart, so he goes from 3 to 3 in order to attack the Ravagers until he gets caught. Well, he beats up 2 Ravagers, and then he gets caught by Yondu. And then Yondu, kinda, in a way, it feels like he betrays the Ravagers because he always protects Peter Quill. No matter how you look at it, no matter what Peter does, he always protects him. Because, like, yeah, we're not gonna hand over the Guardians of the Galaxy to the Sovereign people, okay? We'll be in big trouble. So a mutiny starts to happen, and also Nebula has manipulated Groot into letting her go. But she shoots Yondu's fin, and also then electrifies Rocket. And then she bites the fruit and it's like, it's not ripe yet. Where it's like, yep, that's the ongoing joke. At least it's not as annoying as Screaming Goats. That movie is, oh god, that movie. One day I'll have to watch that thing, but I hate it so much. And it also features the Guardians of the Galaxy, so it's kind of connected. So, basically, the good guys get captured by the Ravengers. On Ego's planet, we have Ego's very beautiful planet. And it's like, you own your own planet. It's no bigger than Earth's moon. It's like, he is humble. Just like me, is what Drax says. Just as humble as me. But Ego is the planet. And we learn that Ego is a celestial. Which, afterwards, after he says that, but, says, you know, it's like, you're a god. Yeah, only, well, small g. Only on days when I'm as humble as Drax. So they go inside and we learn the origin of Ego. Basically, there was a brain floating in space and then learned to control matter and then formed a planet around himself. However, he started to feel lonely, as we all do. So he set out in search through the galaxy for life. He created something that he thought was life, which conveniently was the design of a human being. How did he know? Who knows? But he went across the galaxy in order to find life. And then eventually he came to Earth. He met Peter's mom and impregnated her, and then Peter was born, and he never returned afterwards because of the fact that he loved her and he couldn't be on a planet without her. And also, yes, to anyone who's like Drax and is wondering this, he does indeed have a penis, but he needed to search for the meaning for his own purpose and life. And this is kind of what I meant in the spoiler-free review, where it's like you get his understanding for why he does things, as in, you know, you get why. Like, he wants a meaning in life, and he has found meaning in life. The problem is that meaning ain't good. So on the Ravager's ship, we have mutiny, where we have the people who still follow Yondu get thrown out the ship and into space. And also the main bad guy of the Ravagers is called Taserface, which everyone has a bit of a laugh about. And Nebula gets a new hand and also wants 10% of the cut, because they all want to kill Yondu and Rocket. And it's like, don't do that. The Sovereign will pay you $1 million for Rocket and Groot. And also, Yondu has a lot of warrants out there for his arrest as well. You can cash in on that too. See? Don't throw them out. Think smart. So, she gets a new hand and also gets a ship, which has been programmed with Ego's planet location, which they know, which will also come into play later. And then Kraglin is like, so what are you gonna do with your cut? And then she's like, I'm gonna build the best warship on the planet, and then I'm gonna kill Thanos. And he's like, you know, I thought maybe a new hat to make all the other girls go, ooh, that's nice. But have fun. So Nebula gets into the ship and heads for Ego's planet. So, yep, we got some problems heading our way. And then we have the scene where it turns out that Star-Lord also contains the Celestial Gene, because he's able to use the energy from Ego's planet. And then he uses that to turn it into a ball and plays a little bit of catch with his dad, which is very nice. So later on, we have the fact Mantis's backstory, and that is that Ego found Mantis and raised her as basically a sleeping pill. And Drax opens up to her about things, and she starts to form a bond with Drax. So she wants to tell Drax something. And then Gamora shows up. And this is in my spoiler-free review, where I was like, there's just things that just don't work. Because Mantis is the one who says that. She comes in. She's like, hey, Drax, I need to tell you that Ego is evil. But then Gamora comes in. So she's like, yeah, okay, I don't need to tell you anything. Bye. It's like, you can still tell them. Like, why are you not saying anything? Meanwhile, Rocket and Yondu get locked up, and the Ravagers are gonna use Groot as a mascot and basically abuse Groot, which is so sad to see. I will say that scene was actually like, you know, I know like the opening of the movie was like, oh look, it's baby Groot, merch, but this one might actually make me feel bad for Groot. I was like, stop hurting Groot. I don't care if he's just a merchandising opportunity for Marvel and Disney. You stop hurting Groot right now. Don't make me jump into the TV and punch you. So Groot eventually walks over to Yondu. No. So Groot eventually walks over to where Yondu and Rocket are being held. And Rocket is like, oh, what did they do to you? And then they need a plan of escape. So Yondu is like, alright, I need to grab my prototype Vin. And Groot keeps bringing back the wrong stuff. So Yondu's like, the drawer it's in has this symbol on it. And then Groot walks over to it and opens up the drawer and grabs the wrong thing. And then Kraglin is like, he needs this thing. He gives it to Yondu and is like, sorry, boss. Please forgive me. I just thought you didn't care about us anymore because of Star-Lord. So we have a very fun escape sequence where Yondu uses an arrow in order to just hit everyone. Groot gets his revenge on the guy who bullied him the most. And also we have Rocket, who gets to shoot a couple of guys. And Yondu blows up the ship with Taserface in it. But before Taserface dies and the ship fully blows up, Taserface gives the location of Ego's planet to the gold people. So that's fun. And Yondu, Rocket, Groot, and Kraglin escape because they detach the front part of the ship, so they fly off. And then, because of the way that Yondu was talking about Ego, Rocket immediately plans a course for Ego's planet. However, no one is allowed to do more than 50 jumps at a time. and they're about to do 700 of them, so we get some weird effects, which I thought was fun. So they head over to Ego's planet, and Gamora finds Ego very sus, which Peter's like, yeah, but it was your idea to come here, and now you're gonna suss him out? Make up your mind! And so Gamora walks off, and gets attacked by Nebula, and then they have a big fight. We have Gamora, who just grabs a gigantic gun, a BFG, if you will, and puts it on his shoulder and starts shooting Nebula, and then she saves Nebula. And then they kind of make up, but not really. And then Gamora and Nebula walk off towards some kind of light, and they're trying to figure out what's over there. But we won't find that out for a little bit. So we also learned that Peter Quill is now immortal, and that as long as the planet is alive, aka Ego, that Peter also will be immortal forever. And Mantis at that point also wakes up Drax and tells him the truth. So Ego tells Peter the truth about his expansion plan, about the fact that he basically bred with a lot of different people, like a lot of different species around the world, in order to find one that had the celestial gene, one of his kids. However, none of his kids, until Peter Quill, had the celestial gene. So basically, they were all useless, which just makes this guy a complete monster. Because you get why he's doing what he does, but the child murder didn't need to be a part of it. That is like, okay, I get where you're, like, that makes the whole sentence go, I understand where you're coming from, to like, what? Because I don't get it. Look, you wanted to see what was out there, find a meaning. You found a meaning, which was basically take over the whole universe, turn the whole universe into Ego, I guess. However, you learned you needed another celestial to do it, because one celestial wouldn't be enough. And then you bred with a bunch of people, which is like, okay, in order to find one with the celestial gene. And instead of just, when you found your kids that did not have the celestial gene, instead of sending them back home, what you did was you killed them. You psycho. Anyway, he also shows Peter what the plan really looks like, and Peter's like, it's beautiful and he loves it, but what about his friends? And also, you went around like an actual slut, a whore, if you will, but mainly a slut, because I think technically he did it for free. And you told me before that you loved my mom, and he's like, I did, and it was so sad that I had to put that tumor in her brain. And it's like, why? No matter how you look at it, why would you ever say that? You had him on your side. All he had to say was, look, I loved your mother and I couldn't come back because then I couldn't do the plan. That is why I left you. That's where you should have ended it. But he's like, so I killed your mom, by the way. You know, the guy who I want to have on my team, I killed your mom. So are you still gonna be on my team? No! What is wrong with these people? Sometimes I'm just like, how can you be that stupid? Oh, this was the stupidest moment in this whole movie. Like, this movie had some, like, weird moments, but this one takes the cake. Why would you say that? Because that immediately makes Peter be like, nope, pull out his guns and start shooting Ego. And then Ego tries to use him as a battery until, you know, they get saved by Rocket and Yondu. Also, what I find weird is while Ego did kill all of his kids, did he have to keep their bodies? Because he just has a cave. And at the end of that splits into two ways, I think. And at the end of one of the ways, there's just a pile of dead children. Why did he have to do that? And also we learn during that part that Yondu has been delivering kids to him for a lot of money. It broke the Ravager code. But he got compensated for it, so who cares? But of course, with the one who actually does have the celestial gene, he didn't do it. But we learn later why, so we'll get there later. So Ego, I think at this point, I think it's this point or later on, I forgot when, but he turns into David Hasselhoff and then uses Peter as a battery. And then the expansion begins. But everyone saves Quill, and now Yondu. And now it's like they get into the ship, they fly off, and then Quill's like, no, we gotta kill Ego. Because if he lives, everything is just done for. So, Peter and Yondu have a little bit of a conversation. It's like, yeah, you only kept me because I was able to get into small places. He's like, really? You think that's why? Nah, dude. I learned what Ego was doing, and I just decided that wasn't for you. So that's why I kept you. I kept you because I learned the truth about Ego. Nobody said that. He could have said that, by the way, in the prison. He didn't say that. He didn't really have, like, he talked a little bit iffy about Ego, but when they were in the prison, because Rocket is like, look, we need to get to the gang now, because Ego is trouble because of the way that you talked about Ego. But it's like, he could have just said that they were trouble, like, in the prison. He could have been like, you know, when Rocket was like, oh yeah, hey, Peter's with his dad. Yondu could have been like, well, what? No, wait, he shouldn't be there. No, wait, what? He shouldn't be there. So now we go down to the core of the planet in order to kill Ego, because you go to the core of the planet and then you just start, once you blow up the core, we're good to go. So they start firing on the core of the planet. Meanwhile, you got the gold people's drones driving again. And yeah, that's gonna be a problem. So this is what I mean, where I made the reference to Ant-Man and the Wasp, because in Ant-Man and the Wasp you got like the bad guy in that movie, the human bad guy, I guess, not Ghost, but the other one. And it's like, you are only in the movie so that we can have like cars flipped and all that stuff, and so that the FBI doesn't get hurt in that sense. It's like, that's the only reason that you're in the movie, but you didn't need to be in the movie. The same thing I have here. The Sovereign, I feel like, did not really need to be in this movie. Like, they could have been in the opening of the movie, and then could have been kind of like gone, but they kept coming back, and it felt a bit annoying. So they all tried to fight the Sovereign, while also a couple of, like, while Gamora, Drax, and Mantis fall out of the ship. Ego is waking up. He learns their location. No. Ego has finally learned where they are, so he starts to appear. And then they're like, hey, Mantis, you can put him to sleep, right? It's like, yeah, when he wants to, and also not when he's like this. And then Drax's like, I believe in you. So Mantis does it, and Drax is like, I didn't believe in her at all. So Ego is put to sleep so that we can deal with the Sovereign, where we have a big fight. And also, we have the fact that Rocket makes a bomb. And in order to activate the bomb, you need to pull 2 switches and then press the left button. But never press the right button. And my brain was immediately like, why did you put on an insta-kill? Why did you put that on the bomb? There's no need to put that on the bomb. You put the 2 switches and then you hit the right button and it blows up. Why was that secondary button there? It's for a joke, where Groot is like, I hit these 2 switches and then I hit the wrong button. But it's like, you didn't need to do that. And also then later on, it's like, oh, hey, does anybody have tape? Well, Groot grabs the thing and just starts going for the core of Ego. Like, they have a death button on a bomb. Why? So eventually they all get surrounded by the Sovereign ships and it basically gets shot at until Nebula puts the electricity into her own body in order to, I guess, use her body as a power-up for the ship, and then the ship destroys all of the Sovereign ships. And there you go, done. So everyone, but their ship also blows up. So they all land safely. And what I like was the fact that you see Yondu like floating down like Mary Poppins. However, I noticed it on this specific viewing. If you look at his like mohawk thing, his fin, it is going, there's like a red bar that's going up and down. And the only reason I noticed this is because I was lying on my bed during this part, because I didn't need to make notes specifically during this point. So I was lying on my bed. I was already lying sideways a bit. And I saw the fact that it was like, it looked like Kit's bar at the front of Kit from Knight Rider. And I was like, oh my god! I don't know if it was intentional or not, but I'm seeing that as a reference to Knight Rider. So they all land, and then Mantis gets hit by something, so Ego wakes up. Because now that we're done with the Sovereign, let's have Ego again. Once again, a reason for the Sovereign being in this movie is just like, another reason why I feel like the Sovereign are making this movie feel a bit more bloated than it is. It's like in Spider-Man 3, where it's like, oh, Sandman gets taken out. Now let's focus on Venom or Harry Osborn. And it's like, really? So Ego starts to attack everyone, and the flowers start to expand again, so that's great. And everyone loses eventually, because of the fact that Peter gets grabbed again. However, then Yondu is like, look, I told you before that I don't use my brain in order to make the arrow fly. I use my heart. So Peter starts to use his heart as well, and learns to fully control, because the only thing he can make was a ball before, but now he can control it because he was holding himself back. But now he has full power, so he starts a fight with Ego, while everyone basically gets off the planet. Drax's nipples get hurt, which I like how when he's on the surface and Kraglin is Yondu's like, Kraglin, get the ship down here for extraction. So he goes down, and then Drax flies up with Mantis in hand, runs to the ship. Then Ego grabs the ship and pulls on it. Then Drax turns around and runs away from the ship. And then when the ship once again levels out, he turns again and runs back to the ship. I found that funny. It's a small thing, but I thought it was hilarious. So Peter and Ego are fighting while everyone is trying to get out. And we also have the fact that at one point, Peter turns into a giant Pac-Man. And with the noises as well. I like that. But they fight while everyone gets out. Groot gets to the core, pushes the 2 levers, and it hits the correct button, runs away. They leave. Yondu stays behind. Rocket gives Yondu 1 flight pack and 1 protection from space. And if you are wondering what happened to Peter Quill's helmet, well, that one broke somehow. He lands on his back and the thing breaks or something like that. It's like, how weak is that thing? Whatever. So his helmet breaks. That's why Yondu had to die. So Yondu eventually puts the protection around Peter and then activates the boost in order to fly up. And Ego blows up. And then Yondu is like, basically Yondu says that he is proud of his son Peter. As an adoptive son, kind of. And Peter is very proud of his papa as well, Yondu. And Yondu then dies, sadly enough. And then he, at the end of the movie, gets a Ravager funeral. While Peter gets a Zune, which you might see as product placement. But I feel like that thing is even outdated even nowadays. It's like, nowadays you got everything on your phone. So you don't need that. But he gets a Zune. And then Peter gives the arrow to Kraglin, and like I said, Yondu gets a very sad farewell, but he does get a Ravager funeral, which is very sad, but also very respected, and I love it. And then the movie ends with Kraglin trying to use the arrow. Then we get the credits, and we have the fact that we have a David Hasselhoff song during the credits. We also have the gold people making Adam Warlock, seeing Guardians 3. And we also have Puberty Groot, and the movie ends with Stan Lee with the Watchers. So that is all cool. And that is my spoiler talk for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. I know I kind of went fast at the end, but to be honest, that was the highlights. I usually, during the final fight, only write down the highlights. But overall, I really enjoy this movie. I don't think it's as good as the first one or even close to the third one. But it is still a really good movie. The comedy does start to rear its ugly head. But this is still not the worst that the Guardians of the Galaxy have to offer. Because technically, the next Guardians of the Galaxy thing that we'll be looking at is what will be the worst thing. I'm iffy on the holiday special. I'm just gonna say that right now. Actually, next up is I Am Groot, and that one feels more pointless than anything else. But overall, I thought that this movie was great. So comment down below your spoilery thoughts on Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. I want to hear all of your nitpicky goodness or badness, no matter how you look at it. I want to hear it. So comment it down below, and thank you all so very much for watching, and hope you guys have enjoyed. And if you did, please like button, subscribe if you're new, if you're not already, turn on notifications. Don't forget to check out my Let's Play channel, link in the description and at the end of the video. And I'll see you guys next time when we do the review for I Am Groot, both seasons in one video. Let's see if I can take a whole show and put it in one video of like 5-minute shorts. But I'll see you then. Bye.